Rolling for Literacy Episode 1: How Dungeons & Dragons Supports Literacy Education. Part 0: Introduction. We begin in a classroom. It is one not like any you're familiar with. Rather than analyzing a text, the students live inside one. They write their own dialogue, embody characters, and make decisions that alter the plot. They roll dice, not to escape from learning, but to bring literacy to life. The students are playing games. Roll initiative. Hi, I'm B, a graduate student studying adolescent English education, and I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons and other tabletop role-playing games for about 10 years. My work in education has made me especially interested in how we can use play to teach literacy, even for older learners where play so often gets left behind. In this episode, I want to explore how Dungeons & Dragons, or D&D, doesn't just support literacy, it teaches it. Not just reading and writing, but narrative thinking, collaboration, and critical imagination. And, honestly, reading Shakespeare aloud is its own kind of roleplay, just one where the stage directions have already been rolled for you. Part 1. What is literacy now? When we talk about literacy today, we're talking about more than reading print on a page. The New London Group argued back in 1996 that literacy is multiliterate, a mix of linguistic, visual, spatial, and digital ways of making meaning. Reading a meme, navigating a video game, or interpreting a rulebook all count. James Paul G calls these semiotic domains, worlds of shared symbols and meaning. If you've ever argued over whether a short rest restores your key points, you've already practiced literacy as G defines it, making meaning through systems, not just sentences. In that sense, D&D isn't just a game, it's a complex literacy event. It requires reading, writing, listening, improvising, and communicating under pressure. It's multimodal by design, a blend of story, strategy, and social dialogue. Part 2. Storytelling is literacy practice. When you play D&D, you're not consuming a story, you're building one. Every role, every decision, every moral dilemma shapes a narrative that didn't exist until you and your peers spoke it into being. That's what Jerome Bruner meant when he called narrative emotive thought. It's how humans make sense of experience. It's also what Vygotsky described as learning through social interaction. Knowledge is something we construct together. And research backs this up. In her 2017 thesis, Carly Kaler found that middle school students who played tabletop RPGs showed gains in reading motivation, vocabulary, and narrative comprehension. Students said the game made them want to read more, rulebooks, lore, even novels set in similar worlds. Sarah Lynn Bowman describes role-playing as a form of collaborative improvisation that helps players experiment with identity and empathy. When students debate a character's choices or interpret a dungeon master's description, they're doing the same kind of analytical and imaginative work we ask of readers in literature classes. In D&D, everyone becomes both reader and author. The distance between the two disappears. Part 3. Language, vocabulary, and genre literacy. D&D also teaches language in ways that are deeply contextual. The player's handbook demands close reading, interpretation, and applied comprehension. Students encounter specialized vocabulary, arcana, perception, persuasion, and immediately use those words to act in the story. That's how language sticks, through use, not memorization. G argues that literacy is inseparable from practice. You don't just learn words, you learn the social worlds they belong to. We also know that students speak and write more fluently when language is connected to purpose and imagination. Davin and Donato's 2018 research on play and second language learning found that playful settings promote authentic communication and motivation. In short, D&D doesn't make students learn new words, it gives them reasons to. Part 4. Dialogue, collaboration, and critical thinking. D&D is constant dialogue, something that Bakhtin called dialogism, meaning created through conversation. A campaign is never one voice. It's a chorus of perspectives that must listen, compromise, and adapt. And that's literacy too, the ability to engage with multiple voices and still create shared meaning. In Reading Don't Fix No Chevys, Smith and Wilhelm showed that adolescents engage when learning feels social and relevant. A D&D campaign does exactly that. Every moral argument, every persuasion check, every collective decision asks students to think critically and express themselves clearly. As Harvard's Project Zero puts it, play supports learning through choice, wonder, and delight. And those three words, choice, wonder, delight, should be at the heart of every English classroom. Part 5. Shakespeare and scripted roleplay. This isn't a radical break from tradition. It's a return to what English has always been about, performance. When students read Romeo and Juliet aloud, they interpret tone, emotion, and motive. They're performing literature. D&D takes that energy and lets students extend it. The script is unfinished, and their choices determine how it ends. So let students play Macbeth's ambition or Juliet's defiance. Let them invent their own tragedies and comedies. When they do, plot, theme, and character become lived experiences, not abstract ideas to memorize. Vygotsky once said that play is the leading source of development in preschool years. What if that's true for all of us? Maybe the reason adolescents disengage isn't because they've outgrown play, but because school has. Part 6. Classroom Applications. So, what could this look like in practice? Let's roll for some ideas. 1. Character creation as literary analysis. Have students design characters that embody themes from a novel. The Odyssey's Odysseus becomes a modern wanderer with flaws written directly into their stats and backstory. 2. Campaign journals as reflective writing. Students keep in-character diaries, building voice and perspective as naturally as they breathe. 3. Dungeon Master as author. One student writes and runs a short scenario for the class, planning exposition, conflict, and resolution, then revises based on player feedback. 4. World building as setting analysis. Instead of dissecting 1984, have students create their own dystopias. When they decide what's legal, what's forbidden, and what people believe, they understand how authors use setting to explore power. 5. Cross-text adaptation. Turn The Crucible into a courtroom encounter or Macbeth into a political thriller. Students see how theme and tone shift when the outcome depends on a role. 6. Rules as rhetoric. Ask students to analyze or modify a D&D rule as though it were a persuasive text. For instance, debate whether the alignment system should exist, or rewrite a spell description to alter its interpretation at the table. The rulebook becomes a rhetorical artifact. Students must read closely, construct arguments, and defend revisions with textual evidence. It's critical literacy disguised as game design. These approaches make literacy collaborative and meaningful. Students aren't writing to please a teacher. They're writing because it matters to them and shapes the story they're trying to tell. Part 7. Writing campaigns as writing education. A D&D campaign is a story perpetually under revision. The Dungeon Master drafts, the players test, and the narrative evolves in real time. That's feedback and iteration made visible. Educators have argued that RPGs make the architecture of storytelling explicit. Pacing, tone, foreshadowing, because students see those elements working immediately. When students publish their campaigns as zines, podcasts, or digital stories, they bridge analog and digital literacies. They become designers of meaning in the New London Group sense. Authors remixing culture through collaboration. And for reluctant writers, that's powerful. It turns I have to write into I want to see what happens next. Part 8. Conclusion. As play researcher Stuart Brown reminds us, the opposite of play is not work, it's depression. And that might sound dramatic, but think about how often school teaches students to equate learning with tension instead of curiosity. Dungeons & Dragons doesn't trivialize literacy, it revitalizes it. It returns language to its roots in storytelling, dialogue, and imagination. So the next time someone says games are a waste of time, remember, every time a student rolls for insight, they're practicing empathy. Every time they narrate an action, they're working on syntax. And every time they build a world together, they're proving that literacy is not just a skill, it's a shared act of creation. That's not a lucky roll. That's good teaching.